Keeler recalls spending an innocent night with Profumo, exploring the house and dressing up in armor. But the friendship soon became less innocent, involving a full-blown affair. Profumo was a rising star who moved in the top levels of British society and was married to movie star Valerie Hobson. But the affair ended after just a month, when the cabinet secretary was alerted to a potential security risk by the head of MI5. At the same time as conducting an affair with Profumo, Keeler was sleeping with Yevgeny Ivanov. It was later alleged that Ivanov asked Keeler to try and find out from Profumo the date nuclear warheads would be delivered to West Germany. Profumo was told in no uncertain terms to break off the relationship. For 2 years, rumors swirled around Whitehall about the scandalous affair, but it stayed out of the public eye. In 1962, however, police were brought in to investigate a shooting incident involving 2 of Keeler's lovers. It didn't take long for both police and journalists to find out about the affair, but both parties remained silent due to a tradition of respecting politicians' private lives. This changed in March 1963, when opposition MP George Whig gave a speech in the House of Commons accusing Profumo of impropriety and breaching national security. One of Profumo's defenders was a Dr. Stephen Ward.
I've known Jack Profumo for about 7 years, and I've just read the statement that he made in the House of Commons this afternoon. It's a dreadful thing that a man should be put in the position of having to do this as a result of entirely baseless rumors and insinuations that have been started by the press. I know them to be baseless because I was there when the meetings took place. And there is absolutely nothing of a sinister nature which can be attached to these occasions.
But as well as being a well-regarded osteopath, Stephen Ward was running an exclusive call girl service, and Keeler was one of his girls. Ward was later charged with living off the earnings of prostitution and committed suicide the day the verdict was due to be handed down.
I've been absolutely appalled to see the deceitful way in which an impression is created in people's minds, but at the same time, those people aren't told specifically what the accusations are. Take the case of Captain Ivanov at the Soviet Embassy. I know this man. I've known him for about 2 years. I know him to be a man of great honor. I've never heard him once say anything detrimental to this country. I've never heard him be disrespectful to the Prime Minister. He was a loyal Russian and liked by everybody he met. And yet somehow he's been represented as a sinister figure, and goodness only knows what sort of interpretation is being put upon the fact that he was a visitor to my flat.
Keeler herself alleged in her 2001 autobiography that Ward ran a Soviet spy ring that included the head of MI5, Roger Hollis, and known spy Anthony Blunt. It didn't take long for the truth to come out about Profumo's affair with Keeler, and the minister was forced to make a humiliating apology for lying to the House and resign his ministry and his seat in the House of Commons. Another call girl who became notorious from the case was Mandy Rice Davies. The teenager testified that she'd been one of the prostitutes run by Stephen Ward. During his trial, she made the now famous remark, "Well, he would, wouldn't he?" when asked why Lord Astor denied knowing or having an affair with her. Rice Davies used the Profumo affair to launch a semi-successful music career. In the months following Stephen Ward's death, senior judge Lord Denning conducted an investigation. He concluded that national security was not compromised by the affair, but criticized the government for not dealing with the problem more quickly. Although the conservative Macmillan government clung to power, Macmillan was weakened by the scandal and forced to step down in October 1963 due to ill health. Soon after his resignation in June 1963, Profumo volunteered as a cleaner at an East End charity, something he continued to do until his death in 2006. Christine Keeler served a 9-month prison sentence for perjury following the trial of her ex-lover, Lucky Gordon, and has written several books about the Profumo affair. Despite many rumors, no further evidence has emerged to link Stephen Ward to Russian espionage. Declassified American intelligence documents mention suspicions that while Ward had never been established as a communist, he was friendly towards the Russians. With its salacious mix of sex, politics, and spying, the Profumo affair remains one of the great British scandals. Coming up, a music legend on trial for murder. When police responded to a 9/11 call in a ritzy suburb of Los Angeles, they had no idea they'd been called to the mansion of one of the most famous men in the music business. Inside the house, they discovered a woman's body slumped in a chair in the front hall, with a gunshot wound to her head. Chauffeur Adriana de Souza, an employee of music legend Phil Spector, had phoned in the death.
The officers arrived at the scene and discovered a female had been shot inside the location. The victim was pronounced dead. Mr. Philip Spector from Motown Records has been arrested and booked for murder. Our sheriff homicide investigators are assisting with this investigation. The body of the victim is still at the location. Her identity and age has not been disclosed pending notification of kin.
The woman turned out to be Lana Clarkson, a 40-year-old actress who had starred in several B-grade movies in her younger years. After the parts dried up, Clarkson took a job as a nightclub hostess at the House of Blues in West Hollywood, where she met Phil Spector on the night in question. Clarkson accompanied Spector back to his Alhambra mansion for a drink, but was dead by the next morning. Police charged Spector with second-degree murder, and the case went to trial in 2007 after several postponements. The defense, led by high-powered attorney Bruce Cutler, alleged that police mistreated Spector before his arrest, preventing him from speaking to an attorney and pressuring him to make incriminating admissions.
The evidence will show this was a tragic accident, and that it's a sad thing for any jury to see photographs that you saw. And the evidence will also show that back on February 3 of 2003, before they even had a cause of death, let alone a manner of death, they had murder on their mind. Murder on their mind. The police.
The defense argued that Clarkson, not Spector, had fired the fatal shot and presented evidence from forensic expert Henry Lee.
This is what is called a classic self-inflicted type of injury. Classic self-inflicted type of injury. And it means that somebody volitionally placed the gun in her whole mouth. The wound is in the tongue, part of the wound, which means that the bullet grazed the tongue.
But the defense failed in its bid to exclude incriminating evidence, including statements made by Spector while in custody and at the scene of the crime. Deputy District Attorney Alan Jackson told the jury of 9 men and 3 women that the accused put a loaded pistol inside Clarkson's mouth and shot her to death. He said Spector was a man who, when confronted with the right circumstances, turned sinister and deadly. The prosecution then presented a series of former girlfriends and lovers who testified that Spector had threatened them with a gun when they tried to leave his house. Jackson showed jurors a photo of Clarkson taken while she was alive, followed by a crime scene photo of her bloody body. 10 guns were later retrieved from Spector's mansion, and the .38 caliber Colt revolver that killed the victim also belonged to the accused. Despite protests from the defense, Judge Larry Fidler allowed the court to hear the testimony of Spector's chauffeur, Adriana de Souza, who was first on the scene. Jurors also heard a recording of the terrified 9/11 call de Souza made to police after he found the body.
Spector looked at him square in the eye didn't say another word. And he confessed, "I think I killed somebody." Adriano D'Souza, shocked and not sure he had heard what he thought he heard from the gunshot, shocked, said, "Well, what happened, sir?" Spector's response was simply this: a shrug. He then turned around and stared back into the house, staring at Lana Clarkson's body.
Spector faced a jail sentence of 15 years to life if convicted, and the defense called in a number of forensic experts during the 5-month trial. On September the 18th, 2007, the jury reported to Judge Fidler that they were deadlocked at 7-5 in favor of conviction. He sent them back to the jury room, and 3 jurors changed their verdict to guilty, but 2 jurors held out, preventing the required unanimous verdict. On September the 26th, the judge declared a mistrial, and Spector was discharged. However, the prosecution announced it intended to retry the matter in the near future. In a press conference following the end of the trial, the jury foreman was asked whether he thought the fact that no verdict had been reached meant the whole case had been a waste of time. He said, "No, those are the principles this country is founded on." On the morning of October the 23rd, 1983, smoke filled the air at Beirut International Airport. Rescuers searched frantically through rubble looking for survivors of the truck bomb that had blasted the United States Marine Corps barracks housing hundreds of American peacekeepers. The same morning, suicide bombers detonated explosives 6 kilometers away at the headquarters of the French peacekeepers, killing 58 people. The scene at the American barracks was utter chaos. Terrorists had struck at 6:20 a.m., substituting a hijacked water truck for their own deadly vehicle. They crashed through several barriers before ending up in the lobby of the building, where they set off an explosion equivalent to 12,000 tons of TNT. The thunderous explosion woke people across Beirut. Most Marines were asleep in their bunks, so the death toll was high. 241 Americans lost their lives and 60 were injured. The peacekeepers were in Lebanon as part of the multinational force that was overseeing the Palestine Liberation Organization's withdrawal from the country. Lebanon was being torn apart by a bloody civil war that pitted various religious groups against each other, while Israeli forces occupied parts of the country. However, some groups disputed the multinational force's neutrality. 34 days earlier, an American commander had been ordered to fire on a Muslim militia. He did so under protest, as he knew it would make the peacekeepers targets. The first sign of opposition occurred on April the 18th, 1983, when 63 people died in a suicide bombing at the American embassy. After the devastating double bombings on October the 23rd, American President Ronald Reagan pledged that U.S. forces would remain in Lebanon. But the situation continued to deteriorate, and further threats were made against the foreign soldiers. American forces withdrew on February the 26th of the following year. The last French troops left a month later. Several radical Shiite groups claimed responsibility for the attack, but many believed it was done under the umbrella of Hezbollah, a paramilitary group with links to Iran. In 2003, an American judge ruled that Hezbollah carried out the attack with support from senior Iranian government officials. The evidence included a National Security Agency intercept of a message from Iranian authorities that directed the Iranian ambassador in Syria to contact the head of terrorist group Islamic Amal and encourage him to take spectacular action against the United States Marines. In his judgment, Judge Lambeth said the court was unable to heal the pain suffered by the families of those who died in the bombings, but he said the court can take steps that will punish the men who carried out this unspeakable attack, and in doing so, try to achieve some small measure of justice for its survivors and for the family members of the 241 Americans who never came home. Iran has denied responsibility for the attack. In 2007, the same judge ordered Iran to pay $2.65 billion American dollars in damages to the families of those killed in the attack. Just a year later, the alleged mastermind of the bombing, Imad Mukhniyeh, was assassinated by a car bomb, possibly planted by Israeli intelligence in association with Arab states. The attacks in Lebanon were the United States' first experience of suicide bombings. Sadly, they weren't the last. Coming up, the mysterious death of Thomas Ince. When Kimberly Jones was sentenced to a year in prison, surprisingly, it wasn't for crimes against fashion.
I was, but I think, we sold it pretty good to my skin. And like, these babes are not going to take over the light on me. They always want to shine more than me. Not tonight, buddy.
Known by her showbiz name, Lil Kim, the hip-hop artist was convicted of conspiracy and perjury charges in 2005 and served several months behind bars. The case stemmed from a gun battle that erupted outside WQHT-FM, known as Hot 97, when Lil Kim's entourage crossed paths with rival rap group Capone N. Noriega, whose song Bang Bang contains an insult to her from rival Foxy Brown. One man was hurt in the shootout that followed. Lil Kim, who won a Grammy in 2001 for her part in the hit remake of Lady Marmalade, maintained she hadn't noticed two of her close friends, who later pleaded guilty to gun charges, at the scene of the shootout. But jurors at the trial saw radio station security photos that depicted one of them opening a door for her, and witnesses said they saw her at the station with both of them. The trial became a media circus, with bodyguards forced to clear a path through paparazzi to get the hip-hop artist to the courthouse. For the court case, Lil Kim ditched her trademark skimpy attire, opting for prim tailored suits and frilly shirts. But her demure makeover had no impact on the jury, who found her guilty on all counts. Before she was sentenced, the musician wept as she pleaded for leniency and apologized for her crimes. "I take complete responsibility for my actions," she said. "I testified falsely to the grand jury and during the trial. I knew it was wrong. I am a God-fearing, good person, and this is the toughest thing I've ever been through." The judge gave her a stern talking to, but her punishment was at the lower end of the scale, as she could have faced up to 20 years in prison. While serving her sentence, Lil Kim released her fourth album, The Naked Truth, which sold more than 2 million copies. Since being freed from prison in July 2006, Lil Kim has resumed her music career and performed with artists such as Diddy, Keisha Cole, and 50 Cent. In November 1924, movie director Thomas Ince was among a party of Hollywood royalty that set sail on a yacht owned by media baron William Randolph Hearst. 3 days later, he was dead. It didn't take long for the rumor mills to swing into action. The following day, a newspaper headline screamed, "Movie producer shot on Hearst's yacht," an allegation that was absent from future editions of the paper. But it was enough to set up an enduring legend. The official verdict, backed up by Ince's personal physician, was that Ince took ill on the yacht and returned home, where he died of heart failure on Wednesday, November the 19th, 1924. However, alternative theories soon sprang up, centering on the role of William Randolph Hearst, then one of the world's most powerful men. Hearst married chorus girl Millicent Wilson in 1903, and evidence has subsequently come to light suggesting that Hearst first knew her as a teenage prostitute, possibly working in her mother's brothel. They remained married to the end of Hearst's life and had 5 sons together. But Hearst became involved with actress Marion Davies in about 1916, and within 3 years the couple was openly living together, as Millicent refused to give him a divorce. The millionaire was infatuated with the starlet and created a production company, Cosmopolitan Pictures, solely to promote her career. but he preferred to see her playing heavy dramatic roles, while Davies' natural forte was comedy, and her films were poorly received. Hearst cocooned Davies in the best money could buy, and his yacht, the Oneida, was the ultimate in luxury sailing. Accompanying Hearst, Davies, and Ince on the fateful trip was silent screen legend Charlie Chaplin, a close friend of Davies, Hollywood gossip columnist Luella Parsons, author Eleanor Glynn, and several other people. The conspiracy theorists allege that Hearst shot Ince either because Hearst suspected him of having an affair with Davies, or because Ince got in the way of a bullet meant for Charlie Chaplin, who was said to be smitten with Davies. There is no doubt that Hearst was prone to irrational jealousy where his beautiful lover was concerned. He was also deeply concerned for her welfare, and later banned alcohol from his palatial estate, San Simeon, because of Davies' increasing dependence on liquor. Ince's body was cremated soon after his death. The Hearst Empire issued a strange statement, claiming that Ince had taken ill while visiting San Simeon with his wife and children. Further fuel was laid on the fire when Marion Davies' secretary, Abigail Kinsolving, claimed Ince raped her on the yacht. Kinsolving gave birth to a baby girl a few months later, before dying in a mysterious car accident near the Hearst estate. Her body was found with a suicide note. There was speculation that Kinsolving had fatally injured Ince while struggling to get away. And Chaplin's private secretary, Tarachi Kono, set tongues wagging when he told his wife he'd seen Ince removed from the yacht with a bleeding head. The rumors were flying so strongly that authorities were forced to step in to investigate. The San Diego district attorney interviewed Dr. Daniel Goodman, a guest on the yacht, and he said in his statement that Ince had complained of not feeling well. The two left the boat together, and Ince had a heart attack on the train home. Goodman took him to a hotel and called a doctor and Ince's wife. Ince told him he'd had similar attacks in the past, but had always recovered quickly, so Goodman diagnosed the problem as acute indigestion. That statement was enough for DA Chester Kempley to wrap up the investigation. He said in a statement, "I began this investigation because of many rumors brought to my office regarding the case. People interested in Ince's sudden death have continued to come to me with persistent reports, and in order to satisfy them, I did conduct an investigation. But after questioning the doctor and nurse who attended Mr. Ince at Del Mar, I am satisfied his death was from ordinary causes. Nonetheless, there are some who still believe that Thomas Ince's untimely death was anything but ordinary."
Three.